everyone. This is Brian Tonsoni, and this is week 5 of Extra Points, a Delphi Bracketology production for StudentUnionSports.com. I am with seniors Jesse Scowden and Daniel Jakes. We are 1 month into the 2016 college football season, and already we have some great stories and some coaching changes. Personally, I believe that these coaching changes should be made after the completion of the season. Mid-season changes demonstrates weakness or a simple public relations ploy. Student athletes are involved, not professionals. Shame on you, LSU and Florida International. However, the college game is still awesome, and we forge on. With that, we send it over to Will Schwindler and Kane Meyer for the Week in Review.
Thanks, Tonsoni. This is a Week in Review with William Schwindler and
Kane Meyer.
All right, for this first game, we're going to talk about Tennessee. Finally a win over Florida. The Vols with a 38-28 win over the Gators. Next is Stanford with the 23-13 win over UCLA. Wisconsin, Badgers defense showed no mercy in a 30-6 victory over Michigan State. And Michigan with a 49-10 win over Penn State.
Louisville, Lamar Jackson showed off his magic again. 5 pass touchdowns and 2 rushing. Gave the number 3 ranked team Louisville the 59-28 victory over Marshall this week. Next we have Houston with an easy win over Texas State, 64-3. The Aggies of Texas A&M with a 45-24 win over Arkansas. And Auburn with some final second drama got the advantage over LSU, 18-13. Les Miles, LSU head coach, was unfortunately kicked to the curb, but he was not the only one who got fired after this week. Florida International also dismissed head coach Ron Turner. Thanks, guys. Back to you.
Thanks, guys. Key wins for Tennessee and Wisconsin. Lamar Jackson continues to lead Louisville, and the top 10 is starting to settle in with some great head-to-head matchups on the horizon. Now it's time for our weekly hot-cold segment with senior and genius Cole Rickles.
Thanks, Brian. Cole Rickles here with your hot and cold segment of the week. We're going to start off with your hot team. It's Wisconsin. Not a big surprise here. They absolutely destroyed MSU. They have a spectacular defense, forcing 4 turnovers, 3 of them critical interceptions. It was unexpected, but we love it. We really do. Wisconsin coming and representing the Big Ten. They're hotter than a snake's butt and a wagon rut, all right? A little rhyming going for you guys. Back here with your cold segment. Our hot segment, it was Wisconsin. They're up north. Now we're going down south for your cold segment. A little inverse relationship there, if you will. And it's Georgia. They're playing Ole Miss, and they allow 510 yards. That's ridiculous, all right? Georgia, they have to step it up. They're in a must-win situation this week. And, they're just been colder than a brass toilet on the shady side of an iceberg.
Thanks, Cole. Once again, never a loss for words to describe what's happening in college football. Wisconsin is an unexpected hot team, and Georgia in a must-win situation this week. Now it's time for our interesting stat of the week. Jensen Reef, senior, what do you have?
Thanks, guys. Jensen Reef here with your interesting fact of the week for extra points. This week, the LSU mascot, Mike the Tiger, he is kept in a pen at the home field for the LSU Tigers. The interesting fact is, when an opposing guest comes into their stadium on game day, Mike is moved into his cage and placed towards the opposing team's entry point. This causes the opposing players to face Mike the Tiger as they walk out onto the field. In my opinion, this serves as a great scare tactic, puts intimidation on them as they see him because they know what they're going to face. They're going to face a set of Tigers as they walk out there. This has been your interesting fact of the week. Back to you guys in the studio.
Okay, thanks, Jensen. Now it's time to look into some of this week's top matchups on the field. First matchup is Oklahoma 1-2 at TCU 3-1. Our first game is a big game because the Big 12 is off to a tough start so far this season. This game will go a long way to determining if the Big 12 champion will make a run for the Final Four playoff. Oklahoma has lost 2 games, albeit to top-ranked teams, and TCU is 3-1 with just an overtime loss to Arkansas. Daniel, what do you have for us?
The Big 12 at this point should be really hoping to at least get a bowl bid to the GoDaddy Bowl. Oklahoma is coming off of a bye week after losing to Ohio State at home. TCU will be the 3rd-ranked team the Sooners have played so far. yet they're 0-2. This is a key game for Big 12 title hopefuls.
Jesse, what do you have?
Yeah, with Oklahoma being 1-2, I feel like this is a desire to win this game. TCU has struggled mightily on the defensive side of the ball, with allowing opponents to score over 32 points a game. To win this game, they must stop Red Hawk QB Baker Mayfield.
Now, this is going to be a tough one. If TCU wins, they have an outside chance maybe to go on and push for that championship. Oklahoma wants to get their season jump-started. It'll be interesting to see which team comes out on top. Our next matchup is Tennessee 4-0 at Georgia 3-1. A huge game in the SEC East. Tennessee, with the win, will have defeated its top two challengers in the SEC East. Georgia, losing big last week to Ole Miss, would like to keep itself in the conference title hopes and keep those hopes alive. Daniel, tell us a little bit about Tennessee at Georgia.
With the win, I find it hard, like you said, for Tennessee to get knocked off their perch at the top of their side of the SEC. They've played nothing like a top team, though, so far until last week in the second half against Florida, mounting a major comeback. I don't see it.
And Jesse?
Yeah, Tennessee's been really slow out of the gates. Usually in the second half they come out with a good offensive game. But Georgia is going to have to rely heavily on Nick Chubb. I haven't seen much passing from their QB, so I don't think it'll be.
Yeah, Tennessee has struggled early, has come on with a big second-half win, and this is a big rivalry game, so the winner of this has a chance to maybe go to the SEC championship. Our third matchup is North Carolina 3-1 at Florida State 3-1. North Carolina won its conference opener with the come-from-behind win versus Pittsburgh last week. The Seminoles are 0-1 after losing 2 weeks ago to Louisville. This game is important as the Seminoles must win in order to keep their season alive and their hopes for a championship alive. Daniel, tell us a little bit about North Carolina and Florida State.
Well, let's just not forget, Florida State didn't lose to Louisville. They got spanked by Louisville.
True.
DeAndre Francois and Travis Rudolph look to keep the Seminoles flame lit. But let's not forget about their go-to guy, Dalvin Cook. He had a career high in rushing, 267 yards and 2 touchdowns last week against South Florida. That was previously unbeaten until they dismantled them. They're still a talented team, but I think that the ACC is really starting to prove that they have more than just a basketball conference.
And Jesse, talk a little bit about North Carolina.
Yeah, Chapel Hill's been pretty good this year. I didn't expect him to be that good. Don't forget the name Ryan Switzer. He had an unbelievable game last week against Pitt with going for over 16 receptions and 200 yards.
Okay, very good. That'll be a game where the winner stays alive for a chance to go to the ACC championship. It is now time for this week's tailgate tip of the week. Introducing senior Jake Klauser, his first time on Extra Points, and he has some advice for all of us tailgaters this week. Jake, what do you have?
Thanks, Brian. I'm senior Jake Klauser here with your tailgate tip of the week, and we're talking about music. Now, when you're at your tailgate, you don't want to be sitting there playing the, latest Justin Bieber song trying to inspire your fellow ladies around you. No, you want to be blaring that rock, getting you ready for some hard smash mouth football. And now we're going to talk about some utilities too. You don't want to be sitting there trying to just play to the guy sitting next to you. No. You want to be playing it to the people 3 rows down that are trying to sit there and listen to that little lady stuff when you're going to just show them how to play some music. Thank you. Back to you.
Nothing like good music. I love good music, and at a tailgate, it needs to be hype as you get closer to game time. Thanks, Jake, for those tips. Now we're back to 2 more games on this week's schedule. We start with the Friday night special. Stanford 3-0 at Washington 4-0, 2 of the top contenders from the Pac-12. The winner of this game takes the lead in the Pac-12 North. Also, the winner of this game may be the only team that could push for that Final Four berth come December. Daniel, tell us a little bit about this game, please.
I think the one thing that hasn't really been spoken of enough for Stanford is their defense. They're allowing 12 points per game. I know that their main guy is Christian McCaffrey, but their defense has not been spoken too highly of. But with that said, you just can't forget the name Christian McCaffrey. He's probably one of the top contenders for the Heisman.
And Jesse, tell us a little bit about Washington.
Yeah, Washington really hasn't played it's like a cupcake schedule. They haven't really been tested, but this week they'll be tested. Their defense has allowed 145 yards on the ground, so they're going to have a big game against Christian McCaffrey.
Another place where boats are used to tailgate at Washington. I expect that place to be hopping, and a Friday night special. Watch it on Friday night if you get a chance. We head to the Big Ten now. 4-0 Wisconsin versus 4-0 Michigan at the Big House, a matchup of two top 10 teams in what might be a preview of the Big Ten championship if each wins its respective divisions. Wisconsin may just be for real. They have 2 wins over LSU and Michigan State. The Badgers are in the midst of one of the most brutal schedules you can find in college football. The Wolverines are simply just rolling and putting up points, and Michigan is a team to watch. Daniel, tell us about this game.
Wisconsin's quarterback, Alex Hornibrook, may be a freshman, but he's playing like a seasoned vet. His first career start came in a spot where Wisconsin will play 3 teams, which will all be ranked in the top 10. 2 of those 3 being on the road. And they're rolling. They're clicking at the right time, and they're hoping to get into that playoff, maybe push for a Big Ten title.
Tell us about this special player at Michigan.
Yeah, Jabril Peppers. He sort of reminds me of a old Deion Sanders. He's just a crazy athlete. He's a great return man, and he's going to cause problems for that Wisconsin special teams unit.
And this might be a game of quarterbacks. 2 quarterbacks we don't hear. The freshman Wisconsin brought in last game, and quarterback Wilton Spate for Michigan has been having a good start so far. But a huge game in the Big Ten. So now it's time for the Heisman Watch, and TJ Nelson will bring us our top 5 picks for this week, or maybe just our top 1. We'll see what TJ
Delphi
has.
Bracketology senior here, TJ Nelson, and I have the Heisman Watch this week. Coming in at number 5, we have Deshaun Watson from Clemson. Started off a little bit cold, but a few past weeks he's been having some really great games. Number 4, we have Greg Ward Jr. Same goes for him. He hasn't had like a very spectacular game, but he's starting to come along. I think he had a little bit of rust at the beginning of the season. Coming in at number 3, we have quarterback J.T. Barrett from Ohio State. He's had some really great games lately. The Ohio State team and overall is just destroying everybody. Coming in at number 2, we have running back Christian McCaffrey from Stanford. He's been absolutely amazing this year. Last week he had a great performance still. It was like 168 total yards, but compared to his 250-plus yards that he's had the few past weeks, I think he'll bounce back this upcoming week. And coming in at number 1, we have Lamar Jackson. The kid's been a beast. He's running and throwing the ball. I believe he almost leads the NCAA in rushing touchdowns as a quarterback. Tim Tebow 2.0, we'll never know. Back to you guys.
Thanks, TJ. It'll be an interesting race down the stretch. Off to a great start on who the best college athlete is in football. This brings us to our game of the week in the ACC. Louisville 4-0 versus Clemson 4-0 at Clemson. A colossal game this week as the ACC Atlantic Division lead is on the line, and more importantly, the leg up for the spot in the Final Four. 2 great teams and 2 great quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson and Deshaun Watson. 2 Heisman candidates go head-to-head on the field. Should be an outstanding game. And this is only the 3rd time that the ACC has multiple top 10 teams meet up in the regular season. So, Daniel, we have a huge game on our hands this week.
Yes, we do. If you haven't heard the name Lamar Jackson, then you're probably living in the desert or under a rock somewhere. Either way, this kid can ball. Offensively, Louisville ranks in the top 10 in 3 categories: points per game, which they're first, passing yards per game 10th, and then rushing yards per game 3rd. But regardless, this is Lamar Jackson's show. He hasn't shied away from the spotlight yet, and I don't see him shying away now.
He's off to a great start. A little bit about Clemson, Jesse.
Yeah, I don't think this is game of the week. This is probably one of the biggest games of the year. Clemson's defense has allowed 125 passing yards with 92 rushing yards. This is by far the best defense Lamar Jackson will see, and if there's a team to stop him, it's Clemson's defense.
I'm anxious to see this game. Like you said, it's Lamar Jackson versus the Clemson defense, and if Lamar Jackson can continue to produce, man, we have a story to watch the rest of the year. Now we're going to send it over to Dave Gilbert, who will bring us this week's college tradition of the week. Take it away, Dave.
Guys, This week's tradition takes us to Clemson University for the tradition of Death Valley, touching Howard's Rock, and running down the hill. Clemson's Memorial Stadium was actually built into a valley, and so in the 1940s, Presbyterian College's coach actually referred to it as Death Valley because his teams never won when they played there. Legendary Clemson coach Frank Howard started calling it Death Valley in the 1950s, and the name has stuck since then. The legend of running down the hill, or the tradition of running down the hill, actually started more out of necessity. As I mentioned earlier, the stadium was built into a valley, and originally there were no locker rooms at the stadium. So the team would dress at the field house, walk down the street, and then jog down to the bottom of the hill on the playing surface. Later on, this tradition was connected with Death Valley as a Clemson alum actually went out to Death Valley, California, and brought a white rock back to Coach Howard and gave it to him and his team. Well, Frank Howard just kept it in his office and actually used it as a doorstop for about a year. And then he finally just told one of his assistants to get rid of it and throw it away. Well, his assistant didn't feel like throwing it out and didn't want to anger the alum who had given it to him, so he actually put it on a pedestal at the top of the hill, the same hill that the team ran down. In the first game that it was unveiled, the team actually rallied from an 18-point deficit in the second half and won, and thus the magic of Howard's Rock began. So the next season, before the first game, Coach Howard told his players, if you're willing to give 110%, then you can touch this rock. If not, keep your filthy hands off of it. And so the legend of touching Howard's Rock and running down the hill began. And thus today, they do now have locker rooms at the stadium. And so what will happen after the team goes through their pregame warm-up, the team will load buses and be driven to the top of the hill and enter the stadium. The band gets down on the field, the cheerleaders line the field, the cannon booms, and the team touches the rock and races down to the field to the roar of all the Tiger fans. And that is the tradition of Death Valley, Howard's Rock, and the running up down the hill.
Thanks, Dave. What a thrill it would be to run down that hill after touching the rock. A great game atmosphere for sure. Our traveling reporter has the good fortune to spend a few days in Clemson, South Carolina. Kyle, what a matchup. How are things down south?
Hey, guys. Thanks for sending it down to me here at lovely Howard's Rock. I'm here for the ACC battle between number 3 Louisville Cardinals versus number 5 Clemson Tigers. Really, I don't know if this is going to be a battle at all because you got 2 words for you: Lamar Jackson. This guy is playing more like Samuel L. Jackson. So what? Shut your mouth. All right. So anyway, he's got 25 TDs through 4 games. If it was a 16-game season, being a former math teacher, I'm thinking he'd probably get 100 touchdowns this year. But they're not going to play that many. So I don't even know if are there any other players on Louisville's team? I don't know if there are. All I ever hear is about Lamar Jackson. I mean, he's got this 176 passer rating. It's insane. 13 passing touchdowns, 12 rushing touchdowns. I don't know if this guy's going to pass, throw it. Heck, he may even kick it for a touchdown this next game. We never know. Card fans, I know you guys are a little bit worried about Lamar Jackson leaving after his sophomore season. And I know you're also kind of worried about Bobby Petrino leaving after this year. Don't worry, folks. He's staying. They're going to win the national title this year because they're going to down Clemson this week. Clemson is going to come back with their former Heisman hopeful, Deshaun Watson. He's had a pretty solid year, passing for almost 1,000 yards, but he's no Lamar L. Jackson. I'm going to throw the L in there just because he's got to be related to Samuel somehow. I think that if Clemson wants to run down this hill after they touch a rock and they want to try to get a win, they're going to have to do one thing that no team has done at all this year. That's stop the touchdown machine, Lamar L. Jackson. My prediction, I'm going to say 49-35 Cardinals over the Tigers, and it's going to be a long, sad walk up the hill for the Tigers. Back to you, fellas.
Thanks, Kyle. Not sure how you got the job of doing all the traveling while we're stuck here in Delphi, Indiana, but we're glad that you do. You bring us great perspective. Okay, guys, it's time for our picks of the 6 games that we are talking about today. Let's go Oklahoma at TCU.
I got the Horned Frogs by 7.
I have Sooners by 6.
I think TCU pulls this out and keeps Oklahoma's season as a downer. The Tennessee at Georgia.
Nick Chubb, Jacob Eason, keep the Bulldogs alive. Georgia by 1.
Tennessee keeps Nick Chubb down.
I think I want Tennessee to win, but I think Georgia wins. I think Tennessee's been too up and down, and I think after last week's big win, they're going to take a week off. Let's go North Carolina at Florida State.
Florida State rolls by 14.
Seminoles, 14.
I think this has the potential for a mismatch. I think Florida State has something to prove. I think they win big. Stanford at Washington.
Stanford by 21.
I got Stanford too by 15.
I think Washington pulls this off in a tight game because it's at home. Wisconsin at Michigan.
That's a tough one. I have to go with Michigan.
Calm, cool, and collected. Wisconsin's freshman quarterback continues a stellar play.
And that's because he's an Ohio State fan. But I think Michigan wins this one, and it could possibly get ugly. And so I'm going to go with Michigan against my Ohio State fan over here. And our game of the week, Louisville at Clemson.
Clemson's defense actually stops Lamar Jackson, and they get the win.
Like I mentioned, Lamar Jackson doesn't shy away. Louisville gets it.
Another pick, I'm going against my heart. I think Clemson at home with their defense has something to prove that they were real last year, and they haven't played well, so I'm going to go with Clemson. Thanks, everyone. That is Week 5 Extra Points. Thanks to our panel. Thanks to our special segment guests. We want to give a shout-out to StudentUnion.com. Without their help, we wouldn't be able to do this. And also IU DJ Unique. No one spins them better than you do. Thanks for the intro music. We will see you next week. This is College Extra Points.